Yeah, okay, great. All right. Good morning. It's still 10:36, so it's still good morning. Good morning. My name is Northon. I work for the teacher development team here at Cel.Lep. See my head now. You can I have to see when I can see my head or not, so you do not see only, my, just the rest of my body, but not my head. Okay, great. Um, so I've been working for Cel.Lep since 2008. Uh, and as a teacher for 25 years now. Yeah, that's a long time. Uh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'd like to thank here the opportunity, Tamar. I'd like to um, thank Educational Solutions for the opportunity of being here. Um, and today we're here to talk about to talk about. Let me see how I can. Oh yeah, this guy here. Uh, double click. Uh, oh my goodness. Oh, hello, Thiago. How are you doing? Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. And we're here to talk about continuous assessment. Okay. Uh, but even before I give you, we look at any definition of continuous assessment, I'd really like to know how you evaluate your students. Okay, really like to hear that because you work for different schools, we have different realities, we have different systems. So I'm really interested in that now. And I'd like volunteers to talk about that, okay, at home or here, okay? Is there anybody who could share that? How do you evaluate your students? I mean, do you have freedom to choose the evaluations, or how do schools ask you to do that? Anybody, please?
Hi, good morning.
Hello?
It's
What's your name
me.
again? Sorry?
I'm Thiago too. I'm
Okay,
another.
Thiago. Welcome, Thiago.
Uh, I tend to evaluate my students constantly and daily, but they are part of that learning process because at the end of the class we have an assessment and then they tell me what they've done and if we could achieve the goal of the day. And then, uh, as the year goes by, uh, every 2 months, I have to send the parents a report telling them the students' progresses. So if they read or if they are because they're too young to read. But if they show interest in reading, if they speak, or if they can understand the words that have been previously taught, and this is the continuous assessment I do with my groups. So
Fantastic.
I have this daily analysis that the students themselves do, and I, on my own, do it every 2 months officially to send the parents. But they have this like report saying the students do something, usually, sometimes, never, or always, something like that.
Fantastic, fantastic. So here we have something close, really close to what we're going to talk about. Great. Thank you so much, Thiago. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Oh, I can see Thiago Cardoso now. Hi, Thiago. How are you doing? All right. Okay, great, great. Fantastic. A second question that I have is, does anybody know the difference between a test and an assessment, what would it be? What would this difference be, or the differences? This is a question I asked myself many times
Mm,
until I started working with it. Yes, please, feel free. Feel free, Tiago.
I suppose that assessment is a everyday uh, exercise the students do in the classroom. It's a way we identify their their weak points, their strengths, and how can we address them in the classroom. And the test, it's on a specific day.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's a really good idea of it. Great. Tiago, feel free. The other Tiago.
I would say that an assessment is something that you do to evaluate the thing as a whole. Like, for example, you can assess a situation, or you can assess your mental state. Like, oh, what is going on? Is there a problem? Is everything okay? What can I do to improve something? What can I do to keep things the way they are, if they are okay? And then I can do that uh, in a specific day, or I can do that every day. But it's a moment in which I stop to analyze the whole thing and the situation I'm in. And a test is something that you can just check. So, for example, if you are a programmer, you can test to see if the program you built has bugs. So, and it's less responsive than an assessment, because a test, for example, if I am working with kids, I can't just test them directly. I can't print something to see if they know something, but I can use a test as part of my assessment. So, for example, in order for them to learn something, I test them priorly to see if they learned that thing already. And then this makes part of my assessment. So I think that an assessment uh, can use tests, but I don't know. I don't know. Then as the course goes by, I'll learn. But I think that a test not necessarily can have an assessment inside of it. I don't know. It's just an idea I have.
Great. Great contributions, great ideas. Great. Anybody else?
Cassia says here,
Okay.
Norton, Cassia is asking, is the assessment the avaliação contínua?
Yeah, that's we're gonna get there exactly. That's the goal. That's the objective. Uh,
And for example, I think that tests, there are a lot of types of tests, you know, and the most difficult point, I suppose, that is to make the students understand that they need to train or something to do a specific test. For example, I teach high school, and we need to improve them to make them understand. Oh, this is ENEM, this is FUVEST, for example, just to make you understand. But so it's a different test, you know. When you are making assessment is different because you are evaluating your student every day. Is it's like in English, for example, I have different types of students too, but I can see them evaluating or improving them uh, every day, you know. So it's totally different. I can, and is different because in a specific day, sometimes they are very good in English at English, and when they do a test, oh, they go really bad, you know. So, but I know they are really good in English. But at the days specifically, they are not very. They are not very well. They are sick or something, you know.
Great. So, and talking about the continuous assessment, right? Which is the goal, the objective of this talk. Yes, we're gonna talk about that. Very good. But you will see that assessments can be divided, right? And we're gonna start like zooming out, by zooming it out, and then we're gonna zoom in and get to the main goal, which is this, okay? It is about continuous assessment. Great, fantastic. Okay, so I found this little text, which is the quite simple. When you Google it, it's the first answer generated by artificial intelligence. I say, oh my goodness, is that so superficial? So it's actually short, but I even found more and more definitions. But believe it or not, that was the best way of summing it up. Okay, so here we have a difference, like differences between tests and assessments. So a test is an object, and it has to do with what you said, guys. Brilliant. Nothing like working with people. Thank you. Thank you. A test is an objective measure used to evaluate a student's knowledge, skill, or ability. Something really straight to the point to that objective. An assessment is an evaluation of a student's progress and progress towards learning goals. So you've nailed it, okay? Fantastic, great. But when we talk about assessment, is it just one thing? No, it isn't, okay? No, it isn't. Look at this. First, we should talk about assessments as summative assessments and formative assessments. Okay, anybody familiar with these terms, summative and formative, that would like to share? It could be, you could open your microphone, you could send a message. Feel free, okay, guys? Feel free to send messages, like chat messages. Maybe, oh, there's some. Okay, so nothing so far? Don't worry, because there is a video about this, okay? There's a video. Oh, guys, so just make sure that you turn the volume up if you're wearing like headphones. There will be subtitles, okay? However, there are subtitles generated by YouTube. And you'll see that when you read sticks, it's not sticks as in palitinhos, but it's actually stakes as in risks. Okay, so every time you hear Matt Harris, the specialist, talking about, when you hear him talking about stakes, it's about risks and not palitinhos. Okay. Okay.
The piece that's growing a lot for us in the international space and the education space that technically we really have done for quite a while, but we're putting a
All right, just the subtitles. Okay. So let's see the differences, how he, well, these are in Portuguese. Oh, it shouldn't be in Portuguese. Okay, let me see. All right. Okay, all right. Great. That was a surprise. It's more fun with surprises. Okay, here we go again. Okay, so this is Matt Harris, and he'll be talking about differences between summative and formative assessments. Okay, there are some questions to be focused on, which I'd like to focus on. So one of them is, how does he define the two kinds of assessments? How does he define them, summative and formative? He gives a very objective but clear definition, okay? He uses an example of a chef, like a chef in a restaurant, To exemplify it very easily, I think it's a brilliant way. Try to focus on that too. Okay, the example of the chef making a soup, creating a soup. And another one is, what are the tips he gives when doing formative assessments? Okay, there are some tips, and I think Thiago has already mentioned some good things that he will repeat. Okay, so let's go.
Have a high stake to them, there's not a lot of
Oh
value
yeah,
there.
that's the stick which
The
should
piece
be
that's
like
growing a lot
stakes.
for us in the
So let me go
international
back a little.
space and the education space, that if they
Okay.
don't have a high stake to them, there's not a lot of value there. The piece that's growing a lot for us in the international space and the education space, that technically we really have done for quite a while, but we're putting a big light on it nowadays, is this notion of formative assessment. So summative speaks to the sum of all the work that was done. Formative talks about student learning along the way. Giving students feedback, assessing their performance, looking at those metrics in real time. And the argument right now, as I said, in the value judgment kind of field, is that formative assessment has more value for learning than summative assessment. But they both have a place, right? So within the formative space, we look to improve in teaching and learning in real time, whereas in summative, we're looking to improve instructional units over a broader time. Okay? So formative assessments are lower stakes because they're happening more regularly. And because of that, they also have a lower point value. So you notice that there's a kind of dichotomy between summative assessments, which we are all very familiar with, and this very high value, direct impact formative assessment. And what you're going to find is in the most effective schools, they're not leaning on one or the other. So the project-based schools that we were talking about before will do a lot of formative assessment, and you'll get very excited about it. But then they'll also have a set of measures around summative assessments, because we know those are important to know about the school and what our students are going to do later on. Okay? So this is one of my best explanations of formative versus summative assessment. And I know I'm doing this after lunch. You're ready to go to the bar and have something to drink, so I apologize for talking about food, but you're going to have to deal with it. So a formative assessment would be like talking to the chef about the quality of the soup. And there's a lot of value there, because theoretically, the chef can alter the soup as they're working on it. They're going to learn about different approaches to the soup. They're going to be able to explore and make mistakes. And as a student or a teacher or as an institution, this is incredibly valuable. However, just by doing formative assessments, we don't know the overall impact of our learning and teaching for those particular people. So we have to do a summative assessment. And this would be the guests tasting the soup, the final product. What does the final product look like? So again, I come back to this lack of judgment piece here, because there's a very strong value in either of these approaches. We want the chef to improve their practice so that as they go on and make further soup, they're going to do better. But unless we have the actual application of that data in some real sense, we could be talking to the chef ad nauseum, and it's not going to have any value. So what I'm going to suggest here is, as you're looking at your schools, it's very important to have a formative or continuous approach to assessment and the summative piece to tie it all together. Okay? So this is my first assessment of you. Did you bring your glasses today? Can you read small text? You may fail this. Frankly, this is a summative assessment. I mean, you're kind of screwed if you don't have this. But you'll notice over on the left-hand side, we talk about these formative assessments. And there's a commonality here. And the commonality is that we are doing things that we can record and that we can provide immediate feedback on. That's what we want with continuous assessment, because continuous assessment provides data for continuous improvement. We're not just looking for an end-all. The students have left the building, the students have left the instructional unit, we can't do anything with it. So when you're crafting your formative or continuous assessments, look for kind of low stakes, easy win kind of assessments. And what you'll find is the most effective ones are student driven, where students are putting their hands up, where students are giving you the data, they're doing their own sort of self-performance analysis. That provides a level of engagement where the feedback comes from the external source, as you as a teacher or you as an appraiser of teachers, but then also directly from the students themselves, where they're self-appraising and they're giving themselves feedback. Okay? Then you'll notice on the other side that we have this summative approach. And there are a number of assessments. Okay? There's a number of tools that we use. There are the Scantrons that we saw earlier.
Okay, all right. So now there are some questions here. Let me just go back to
The PSLE, as I mentioned.
slide. I guess it's loading or just temperamental. It happens. Okay, great. This is the most brilliant thing about technology and artificial intelligence. It is temperamental. Let's go back now. How about talking about this video now in groups? It could be big groups so that you can share your ideas. You can share what you've understood, okay? And at the end of your discussions, I'd really like you to assign a secretary to report, but other people can participate too, okay? From 5 to 7 minutes, talk about these 4 questions. Can you see them? Can you read them? Yes, can you show me thumbs up if you can read them on the slide? Yeah, okay, I can see Thiago nodding, great, fantastic. So here we have, how does he define the 2 kinds of assessments? How does he explain it using the example of the chef, okay, the situation? Is formative assessment more important than summative? What are the tips he gives when doing formative assessment? There are 2 main tips, just to help you in advance, okay? So shall we go to our breakout rooms? Do you think we can go? It will take just maybe like a minute for us to prepare the groups, okay? So, guys, feel free to take prints of this screen, because when you go to your groups, you probably won't have access to this slide, okay? Feel free to take a picture of the screen, time to talk, okay? Because then you can talk about your questions, right? If possible, during your discussions, start your cameras, okay, so that you can talk more organically, okay? All right, so whenever you're ready, you'll be invited to go to your breakout rooms, okay? I'd really like to hear some of the answers, some of the conclusions from your conversations, your discussions. Guys, feel free to, if you're still a little bit shy, feel free to send messages, okay? But feel free to open your microphones and talk, okay? So first of all, how does he define the 2 kinds of assessments? In a very practical way, in a very simple way.
May I? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. First of all, I understood that one of them, we can say that is the beginning of the process. Yes. For example, formative is the beginning of the process because it's kind of an interview process. Yes. So we have a self-assessment, kind of it. Yes. And the other one, the summative assessment, it's kind of a structural, is the end of the process, as I can understand, is that. So you can see the mistakes, you can see what you have to work to make it better, kind of it. Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do you have anything to add? Any other ideas, guys? Oh, Thiago, you're muted now.
As far
Great.
as I could understand the video, I understood that the formative assessment is a way that you give a feedback to students. How can he improve some pronunciation, for example? How can the student can have a better understand of the class? It's a way that you address the students during the process to reach the goal. And another kind of assessment is it's a whole that you work with the whole students, the methodology that you are approaching with them.
Great. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So when he and the example he uses actually when he speaks right to his audience is that summative speaks to the sum. They wrote sum as in SOME, but no, some SUM, right? The adding, right? The sum of all the work that was done, right? So that's how you measure that. While formative talks about student learning along the way. So basically that's it. Okay, great. How does he explain it using the example of the chef? Yes, Milena, right?
He tells he says about the soup, yes, and he asks us if the soup is good, if it's not, the taste, something like that, yes. And this is the formative. And after this, he's going to see if there's something wrong, if he can improve the soup, what he can makes better, if it's not with salt or something. This I don't remember, but it's something like that, as I can.
Thank you very much. Good. Anything from home or from where you are? Okay, so in that sense, the chef actually would be the teacher or the student? The student actually, the student exactly. Okay, and the person giving feedback would be the teacher, right? So we can draw a parallel between both situations there. So as the chef starts creating his soup, maybe I don't know, the restaurant owner, who would be the teacher actually, would be giving feedback. Oh, nice here, great. Maybe it's too salty here. You know, you could add some water or some, I don't know, some spices. Exactly. I'm not very good at cooking. Okay, I'm not the best role model for this. But this would, guys, would this formative or summative? Because then the chef would be able to improve after the feedback. Would this part be formative or summative? Feel free to say.
Formative.
That's the formative one. Okay, yes. Because the person giving feedback would be observing, looking, tasting, right? And then the chef would be changing, right? You'll see a good definition of that later. Who would be part of the summative part of this creation of the soup according to the video? That would be the guests. Okay, when the restaurant opens and people ate the soup, they would say, oh, it's great, or I'm not coming back here anymore because I hated the soup, you know. So that would be the summative part of it. Okay, and this can happen to our students too, right? So this could be we could help give feedback, right? So that students can develop, they can remember that when we talk about formative assessment, we should work on the same thing, right? As the example, they worked on the soup. So they worked on the soup to develop it, and then after that, the guests came to test the soup, not a hamburger, because it would make no sense to change the dish because the feedback was given on the soup. And this is what should happen to our students, right? If you're talking about writing, keep talking about the writing, for example, of a letter of complaint, or to kids, a letter to Santa Claus. So if you developed your learner to talk about, to write to Santa, you're not gonna ask for the final test your learner to talk about, I don't know, to write a letter to his or her grandmother, because it would be a different thing, okay? Or to change the register or the type of letter, okay? Is formative assessment more important than summative?
One's depend on the other. It's not more important or the most important, because it's a kind of a process. Yes, if I don't have one, that's impossible to have another. Yes.
Guys, Milena nailed it. That's it. They are both very important ways of assessing your students, right? Just like this parallel to the chef. Great, fantastic. And now, again, what are the tips he gives when doing formative assessment? What do we need? He talks about two things. Feel free to take risks. Was this question a bit more challenging? All right.
As
It's
far as I
important.
understand,
Yes. Go ahead, Thiago.
the students are usually the ones that are more interested in being part of the formative assessment, like when they raise hands, when they ask questions, when they try to taste the soup, and then we give them the tools to understand if the soup is too salty or not. And then this is one of the tips I could get from what he said. But I would also like to add something about the formative assessment and the importance of summative assessment, because usually when we try and we were cut mid discussion on in the breakout rooms, but I think that usually we tend not to try to make the students feel sad or burdened by failing or something like that. And we tend to think like, oh, everybody learns their own way and everyone learns at their own pace. But sometimes we have to have some guidelines and frameworks, because if we just let the students learning at their own pace, for example, without having a set of flexible but understandable rules, we don't understand their development as a whole. So in these moments, we can identify even some disorders, as we were seeing in Tamara's presentation. So, for example, if a student can't learn how to read, and we just think, oh, he will learn eventually, without trying to think about an intervention, the summative assessment, I would say, then it's just in some degree, a kind of neglect too, because then we would be ignoring the fact that that student has dyslexia or is dyslexic, right? And then we can't make the intervention to improve and uh, help them develop. So those are my 2 cents on being on the importance of summative assessment and the tips the the speaker said.
Okay, yeah, and definitely there are factors that will have consequences, right? When students need to be assessed. That's it. And when it comes to add to the tips, right? So two things that are very important. Teachers need to keep record, right? They should write to give the feedback to students, a place to keep so that he or she can write about the student's performance. And this feedback should be given to students as soon as possible, because as formative assessments happen more frequently, if you wait until the next, remember, from the soup to the hamburger, so if you wait for the student to learn about the hamburger, give the feedback about the soup, it'll make no sense, right? We need to be more immediate. We need to be faster. He says about the same, he talks about giving this feedback on the same day. Not necessarily that, but as soon as possible. Okay, as soon as possible. Here's a definition that we have in our course of TKT, like the teaching knowledge test, right? By the way, this is a course that we offer for free at Cel.Lep, and it's done online, and you're totally invited to participate, to take part. At the end of my presentation, I'll give you my email, and you can send me questions, and you can express your wishes to participate in the course. So feel free. And this is the definition taken from the book, from the TKT book. Okay, look at this. So let's start from this part here, using information. Look, using information from assessment to feed into our teaching and maybe give learners feedback is called formative assessment. Some teachers prefer not to assess their learners' progress in a term through tests, but through pieces of work given throughout the term. They might set a composition in week 2, for instance, a presentation in week 4, an essay in week 6, etc. Then, base the learner's final mark on the average mark for the piece of work. Some teachers think that this method of assessment, continuous assessment, gives a truer picture of how well the learner has learned and is less threatening and more formative than an end of course exam. In younger learners' classes, this form of assessment is sometimes called classroom-based assessment. Okay, something that, of course, nothing is perfect, and when it comes to formative or continuous assessment, there are pros and cons. Okay, it's not 100% perfect. Can you go back to your breakout rooms and talk about, according to your observations, what you think the pros, the advantages, and disadvantages of continuous assessments are? Can you do that? Okay, you're going to your breakout rooms and come back in maybe 4 minutes. Okay, all right. So you can go whenever you're ready. Okay. Of your conclusions of first of all the advantages. What do you think? Sure, sure.
So the formative option, I think that it's a great option because I think it's like the explanation, you know, the students feel more comfortable. But I think that there is a pro because, for example, I can see, for example, in my students because you can't challenge your students for a more specific test. For example, you are not training for a specific test and a specific purpose, you know. When you are training, when you are making for a summative assessment, it's different. You can understand for this day you are going to be prepared for a mock test, for example. It's totally different. When you are doing a formative assessment, it's just for free. It's more, you know, especially the students that we have today. I'd like to say this, especially this, especially when you're talking about teenagers. But of course, and when we say about summative, um, it's difficult to the positive point, of course. We are talking about mock tests, so we are preparing for something different, for Cambridge, whatever, or even for mock tests about GNA or something, depends on the way they were talking about. But so this is the positive point. And the negative point, of course, they are feel, you know, scared about this, about I'm doing something that I feel scared, so about the grade, you know. So yes, I'm tested about something. So this is the negative point.
And definitely, yes, we have to focus on the different kinds, right? And make sure students feel secure. As you said, if you're working on formative, they have to be aware that they're focusing on their progress. but then you cannot forget to train them for other kinds of tests. Great, 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 fantastic. From home, guys? Yes, Thiago.
I believe they complement each other
They
when
do.
when we are providing them a feedback. It's a way to keep an eye on student needs. How can we help them to polish up their studies and skills during the class? It's a way, another way to accomplish the goal in the end of the month.
Great. So they help each other, right?
Yes, and
Fantastic.
about the feedback, it's a part of learning. For example, that's why it's important to have a good relationship with the students, because when we are provide feedback to them, even the feedback is not a good feedback where they wish to listen, because of the respect we have from them, they will understand our point of view, that it's for better learning.
Great, great. Yeah, I have this picture of both tests. Like, it's like when you're teaching a baby to walk, and you know, like you're a parent, you put the baby where on the other side of the room, and you ask your baby, "Come on, come here," and the baby will not necessarily walk from the other side to you because the baby won't feel secure. So that's why one complements the other, as you guys said. So continuous assessment would be like, okay, baby, come here, be careful, careful there. And you were always like there giving feedback to the baby feels secure. And then at the end, you could test when the baby's already trained for that. Then you can go to the other side of the room and ask the baby to come. So one complements the other, right? That's a good way of seeing it. And here, let's check some first advantages, okay, of the pros of continuous assessment. The first one is it gives students, sorry, not sharing. Oh, okay, I'm not sharing, I'm sorry. Okay, it should be screen 2. Can you guys see it? Okay, great. So it gives students the opportunity to learn as they go along, rather than cramming everything in at the end of a course as an exam, right? So like the baby, just like the baby. Then it provides early indication of the student's performance and allows both the learner and the teacher to understand where they need improvement at an earlier stage, right? It's like a diagnostic, right? The sooner the better, okay? And it is an ongoing assessment. Students use their knowledge on a more frequent basis so they don't forget what they learned. That's why feedback is so important, right? As soon as possible. Let's now move on to the cons. There is a greater study pressure as students and teachers need to focus throughout a course or a program, right? So this could happen. And this has never happened to you, right? Okay, so the risk of plagiarism is high due to the increased number of assignments. Students may not feel secure just showing their own knowledge. So they may, you know, resort to their friends' help or even artificial intelligence or something like that, which is here to help, but there are some problems with it, right? Okay, but there is a final verdict. Let's see. Yes, please.
Teacher, does it
Yes.
involve the equality and equity? For example, give more attention to specific students than another one?
Sorry, could you repeat that? The sound was a bit muffled.
Sorry, because I'm in a noisy place. I'm trying to find a better.
That's okay.
Does
We're
it
in a kind of noise.
involve?
Does it involve?
Does it involves equity and equality? given more attention to specific students because of his needs than another one?
You mean formative?
Both.
Okay. So again, does it involve what again?
Equity and equality.
Mm-hmm. About well.
During the process of learning, for example, one student needs more attention from teacher.
Students need more what? Sorry.
Needs more attention from teacher,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
while another student, because somehow has a better performance in English, this
Okay.
student doesn't need so much attention from teacher. How can we hand with them in this case?
Okay. I would say that in formative assessments, I think the other Thiago has mentioned already about something about like dyslexic students. And I think when it comes to formative assessments, we have the opportunity to be closer to them, and we can give feedback, and we can give more feedback to appropriate needs. So it lets us get closer to students and establish better connections to them. Does it make sense? Thiago? Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yes?
The internet connection here is kind of unstable.
Okay. But does it make sense? What I mean, what I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Crystal clear.
Yeah. I think the more contact, I think formative assessment, continuous assessment, gives the teacher more opportunities to be closer to students. And this improves the scene as a whole thing. Okay, while summative assessments will, again, test their knowledge at the end of a program or something, okay? If your final scores consist of both continuous assessment and exams and summative assessments, continuous assessment makes it a lot easier for you to get high grades. So this can help students, right? Because remember that formative assessments are lower stake assessments, while summative assessments are higher stake assessments. So you can help students more with a combination of both, okay?
It a lot easier for you to get high grades. For example, if
Look
your
at the
exams
example.
make up 70% of your total mark and CA 30%.
So look at this, exam summative assessment and CA, continuous assessment, 30%, right? So if your criterion consists of this, this is how it can help. Look.
Tests and assignments give you the opportunity to boost your final marks, since it's quite difficult to score exactly 70% in your exams by getting everything. If you scored 50% in your exams, which means a C grade,
Remember that it could be like 70, but if you get 50%, which is something that commonly happens,
getting 20% in your CA boosts it to 70%.
so you see, combining it with continuous assessment can help students, right? Especially because it's a lower stake kind of assessment. And students are less anxious, less nervous, and you were always giving feedback for their improvement and more on the spot.
To give you an A grade. Plus, it's far easier to get higher scores in your continuous assessment than your exams.
Okay, guys. So basically, that's how it can help students. Now, all right. So now let's have a more hands-on approach to see in our reality, right, how it can help. Do you remember the example of the chef? Can you remember that? Do you remember that we talked about a chef who's trying to create a soup and somebody's giving feedback, like this somebody would be the teacher and he would be like making it better and better and better. Okay, let's see how this can help in the classroom. This can happen in the classroom, okay? Look. This is something that we used to have at Cel.Lep. Okay, it's one example that I could remember. Okay, so I think it's not very easy to read, but that's my fault because it was the picture that I took. Okay, let's talk about writing. Okay, there was something called writing process, a writing project, in which students, in this case, learned how to develop a thesis statement. This text, this production would happen twice, okay? So students would first look at the book, get the context, get models, right? It would be modeled out to students. And then before the first version, okay, we would explain this to students. Look, if you look at your screen, and I'm going to read it to you, okay, Milena, because it's hard to read. Look, the writing project consists of a process leading up to a final product, which will be considered as a part of your written grade. The main objective of the writing project is to help you improve the organization, cohesion, content, and the use of language of your written work. It is important to remember that only by participating in this process will you be able to refine your ideas and express them more clearly and coherently. It is a learning process, so continuous, right? In this process, you will write a first draft, so you see the first version, and receive your teacher's feedback on content, cohesion, and organization. Okay, the first part is only about this. Then you will rewrite your essay for the second draft, the second version, following your teacher's feedback. Here's the feedback moment. And submit your second draft after having received the first feedback. You will receive your teacher's feedback on the language you used, and errors will be underlined and assigned a code for you to try to self-correct. I'll show you where this appears. You will further edit your work and submit your third draft, the final thing. Your teacher will tell you when you have reached your final draft, which is due, okay, so this is the date. So you see, the first part here that you can observe is the feedback on the first draft on cohesion, content, development, organization, and teachers' comments here. So remember that there should be a place where your feedback is registered to students. And this would happen from your 1 week to the other, okay? And then for the second draft, as we saw here, students would focus more on language error correction. And here you can see the second part that focuses on grammar, vocabulary, spelling, punctuation, and comments. And this was, to me, one of the most fantastic things, is that we would put these codes here, underline and write these codes for students to correct their own mistakes. Because what happens when you correct your students' mistakes? So students sometimes just look at the sheet, actually, the paper, and just put it away, right? They, oh, cool, right? Okay, so yeah, students usually look at the mark, right? And do not follow the advice, and sometimes they do not develop. So this is a way of bringing the baby together with you, you know? So this is one of our examples here at Cel.Lep. We have others. Even when, as a teacher observer that we are, we watch a teacher's class, give feedback, watch another class on the same kind of topic or level, and teachers can develop. Remember that assessment is not only from teacher to student, it happens even in companies, right? And now, guys, I'd like to, this is the real hands-on approach now. How can you do it? You are specialists, you know everything about your books, you know a lot better than me. I just looked and found an example to suggest, and just reminding you, this is not something like, oh, I came here to tell you lots of truths. No, I came here just to talk about continuous assessment, and just to suggest something for you to look at your books and see if this is a good idea, okay? Just to give you an idea, actually. Okay, everybody? So, how can you do it? Talk to your partners about how you can make it work with your students using your in your schools. after all this content that we've seen. Okay, maybe we could have a big group with everybody. Do you think it would be possible, Tamara, to have a big group with, and so that they can talk without me talking? Or, oh, or maybe they can discuss here, maybe. Yeah, okay, okay. Guys, feel free to talk here in the main session, right? Yes. Look at your books. Remember, UK 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all your books. And try to see moments where you could have this process of focusing on something, assessing your student, giving feedback, and doing it again. Can you come up with any ideas? I'll show you mine later. You guys know a lot more than me, and you'll tell me if I'm saying something right or no, that's maybe not the best moment in our courses. So, but first of all, what would you say? What could you focus on to give feedback, right? Not as a formative assessment, but as a continuous form of assessment. Tiago, I think, had already talked about something about assessing his students more frequently. Maybe Tiago, if you want to start sharing with us, the Tiago who is in the classroom now, or but anybody, guys.
Oh, we have this kind of guidelines or suggestions, even in our RTNs. But in my schedule, in my routine with my students, I teach young learners, so they range from 2 to 7. And we have in our routine the checkout time in which we check the things we did during our class. And if we managed time correctly, sometimes I don't, sometimes they don't, and then we talk about that. And if we learned the lesson today, and for example, the objective was to talk about family members. So in in the line, where while they are going out, or when they are sitting down, I say, oh, check out time. Okay, so what did we do today? And then they will talk about all the pieces of routine we did. So we had the hello song, we had the explanation. What was the explanation about? Oh, family members. Okay, so what can we say? Or daddy, for example. And then I say, all right, daddy, but what about daddy? Oh, I have a daddy, you know? Okay, we learned that. All right. How did we manage time? Did we manage it okay or not? Oh, yes. Or no, why? Because we talk too much, for example. And then I say, can you say we did it? And then we have a little chance like we did it. And then we leave. We do that every day.
Great. Great. And Thiago has just mentioned something that Matt Harris, remember from the video, said that, correct me if I'm mistaken, Thiago, but you said that your students have this kind of self-assessment, right, at the end of the class, when you ask them questions, right?
Yes, and it's funny because by the end of the year, or even sometimes during the middle of the year, they are like, oh, I want to talk today. I want to speak what we learned today. And it's very cute because I had a student that was very shy. He has autism, and he told me sometimes we had a computer lab session in which he had to talk to himself and listen to what he said. And he was like, ah, eu não posso, eu sou muito tímido. And he didn't want to say. And then as the year went on, we kept having these sessions. And then by the end of the year, he wanted to talk all the time. Like, oh, I want to say what we learned today. Or we saw callers, we saw the family. And it was very cute because he developed this self-esteem to be able to say what we did. It was very nice.
Fantastic. But because by doing this, you raised opportunities for your students' success. When students feel that they succeed, they feel more secure, they feel more confident, right? And these magical things that I'm pretty sure that everybody who's here has already witnessed, like students who were shy or who had trouble expressing themselves, when they see that they are heard and that they are praised, and that mistakes may happen, because even like the ones who aren't make mistakes commonly, because it's just like part of life. Students feel more encouraged. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, yes, would you like to say something? All right.
My experience, it's a little bit different at school because I have a lot of classes, you know. So I used to to teach to little kids, toddlers, um, you know, first grade, second grade, you know, seventh into high school. But I have a great, you know, relationship with them, and they have a great, you know. They nowadays, because I've been with Cel.Lep since 2020. So when we started with Cel.Lep, I was a little bit energetic with them because I want to improve and be have a good result. And since we've started, I think that we've been with a great result, you know. So kids that we were in seventh, sixth grade, for example, nowadays they are talking a lot. So I have some parents that are talking to me nowadays and say, "Oh, teacher, really thanks, because we've been to the United States last year, and if weren't my kids, I'm sure that we would be, you know, crazy, because they are talking in English. If they are talking everything in English. So I want to congratulate you. So we were really happy because of the story of Cel.Lep. Of course, there are some parents that are crazy because they say, "Teacher, what's wrong? Because my kid is 9 years old, and she can't understand the Lord of the Rings." So I said, "Yes, of course, that she or he can't understand the Lord of the Rings. She is 9 years old. It's a process, and they can't understand that it's a process." So that's absolutely normal. But I remember that when we were starting, I was a little bit energetic with the kids, because I entered in the classroom and I told them, "Kids, pay attention. From this weekend on, we are going to say everything in English." And I remember that I print some, you know, notes and say, how can I say this in English? May I go to the bathroom? May I drink some water and everything? And the kids just say, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh." And some of them start crying. No, I said, "No, no cry." But and nowadays, all the school, even the other teachers, you know, say, "Hello, teacher," "Bye, teacher," and everything in English. So nowadays, the result is really nice. Of course, not all the students, you know, there is a not of them, but most of them. So I'm really happy with the result. Yes.
So much. Thank you. And that's the importance of the process, right? Process, hard work, feedback, and this constant interest in the students, right? That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, sure. Cassia. Oh, let me read it here. Let me just open. Okay, the mouse is here. Cassia, maybe we can interact more in the form. Oh, there were some. Oh, there were lots of. Okay. At the end of the class, we have the wrap up, right? Yes. We are checking what they have learned. Yes, we do. definitely, yes. And there is this wrap up, and you can take this opportunity to make comments, right? Because that's the end of the teaching point, the end of that cycle. And it's already a good moment if you want to talk about students' pronunciation or a mistake that he or she is making, or what he or she is already doing well, which is very important. Like descriptive praise is so important. Another video that I didn't show you, but I can send to you is another specialist saying the most dangerous thing is very gooding the students. Everything, oh, very good, very good. But what's very good? Anything I do in class is very good. Giving this descriptive praise is important, and the wrap-up moment is definitely a moment in which you can do it. You can talk to the whole group first, and then you can invite students to talk to you individually in case you need to make some corrections and you think students will feel intimidated. You can call them, oh, just this thing here, just how can we say this better, right? But definitely, yes, yes, it's the end of that communicative goal, and it's a good moment, yes, definitely, okay? And just to finalize, I'm not sure I did my homework correctly, as I'm learning to, but here what I suggested was this. This is UK 5, right? Your books, UK 5, and you have lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, in which they develop the 4 skills in English, right? Reading, listening, writing, and speaking. And then at the end, and depending on the version, they have a reader to a book, right? And then they can kind of conclude that unit before the consolidations and the consolidation moments. And then you have this. Let me click. Okay, so this is your book, United Kids. This is number 5. They are in 5th grade there, right? United Kids 5, right? Fantastic. Then after lesson 8, they will have this, a project time, right? In which students will have to use some of their abilities, sometimes combined, to produce as that unit is ending. And that would be a good moment, to my mind, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, so that you can see how they throughout the unit. It could be a good moment for that kind of task, for feedback, right? For, remember, descriptive praise and some corrections that need to be done. And because they will have also after unit 2 a review of units 1 and 2, and you could even, you know, see, they could revisit that and see how their progress went, okay, or how the progress goes. Okay, not sure. Do you think I said something that makes sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. But this was my objective here. This was my mission here, just to talk a little bit more about this other kind of not that traditional thing of just like giving tests at the end of the semester or of the year, right? But which I'm pretty sure that you guys are quite aware of it, right? So and bring this reflection on, oh, where else could I use it, right? What are the concepts so that I can apply? And again, to invite you to take part in our TKT course, okay, which is free. By the way, I have here my contact. So this is my Cel.Lep email, if you're interested. And I can send you the videos, right? The other video that I couldn't show here. Feel free to send an email to me, okay? And thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.